In 1992, a TV series took one of the greatest cult fantasy films ever and somehow expanded into something even bigger. A much darker world, more immortals and more mythology, and of course Duncan MacLeod. But what's even more crazy is that the first episode breaks the rules established by the original movies. Duncan MacLeod had already won the prize, so why are there still immortals alive? We're breaking down the pilot episode of Highlander, The Gathering. The episode introduces Duncan MacLeod, who launched as one of the most beloved fantasy TV series ever made, and quietly set up the almost every major theme of the series of the next 6 seasons. And trust me, there's a lot of hidden details that you're going to want to watch.
I'm Duncan MacLeod of the Clan MacLeod, born 400 years ago in the... Well, no, not really. That was a TV show called Highlander. So, just listen to Rockin' at the Movies with me, Adrian Paul, and Shane Comley-White, and you'll learn some interesting facts.
This episode opens inside Duncan MacLeod's antique shop, where life seems surprisingly peaceful. Duncan is living quietly with his girlfriend Tessa Noel, staying out of the game, a deadly immortal conflict where warriors battle centuries until there can only be one survivor, but peace never lasts within the Highlander. A young thief named Richie Ryan breaks into the shop, and within moments everything has changed. Duncan senses that there's another immortal nearby. That sensation, by the way, is something that the fans have come to term the buzz, and is something that drives throughout the entire series. And suddenly, the immortal named Slan Quince crashes through the skylight, looking for a fight. And just as Duncan is preparing to battle him, they're going to go head on head, another figure steps out of the shadow, and that is Duncan MacLeod, and the original Highlander himself. And this is where the fans went crazy. This moment was massive for the fans in 1992 because it immediately confirmed that Highlander series existed in the same kind of world in the same time frame. Christopher Lambert's appearance gave the series instant legitimacy. And according to the production trivia, his salary consumed a huge portion of the actual budget of the entire episode and the series, so that's why he only appears once. Duncan MacLeod is introduced in a very different kind of Highlander compared to Connor. Connor was a tragic and isolated individual. Duncan is a lot more warmer and a lot more emotional and more human. He runs a business, he falls deeply in love, he builds friendships and relationships. But beneath all of that is a man exhausted by immortality. The episode repeatedly shows Duncan trying to escape the violence, and he doesn't want to be in the game anymore. But that becomes one of the crucial themes of the entire series. Can an immortal ever truly live a normal life? Tessa is far more than just a girlfriend character. She represents Duncan's connection to humanity, and in this episode smartly uses her perspective to explain the rules of the immortal world to us. Immortals can't die naturally. They fight by sword combat. Holy ground is a forbidden territory for fighting, and losers are beheaded. The winner absorbs the power, which is called the quickening, and this classic pilot episode is written exceptionally well. At first, Richie seems to be the comic relief, just a street thief who accidentally witnesses something insane. But longtime fans know that this episode quietly plants seeds for Richie's future arc. There are even subtle hints towards his own destiny when Connor says Richie might need to be watched. The single line becomes even more important at a later stage throughout the series. Connor serves as a bridge between the movie and the show. But narratively, he is also Duncan's mentor. He understands something that Duncan refuses to accept. You cannot walk away from the game. No matter how peaceful you become, eventually another immortal comes for your head. Connor basically acts like a ghost for Duncan's future, and also almost like a warning to Duncan. Slan Quince is a perfect pilot villain because he represents pure chaos. He enjoys violence. He targets Tessa psychologically. And unlike Duncan, he embraces what immortality turns people into. He basically becomes embodiment of what Duncan fears becoming. Up until this point, Duncan believes that he can avoid conflict. But the moment an immortal threatens people he loves, the game becomes reality and it's on again. And it's very personal. And this is where the pilot gets surprisingly emotional. We learn about Duncan's past through flashbacks involving his Native American wife, Little Deer, and the tragic death. These scenes establish something critical about Duncan. He carries centuries of guilt. Every mortal relationship eventually ends in loss. The emotional burden becomes a true curse for immortality in the Highlander. Not the sword fights, not the violence, but definitely loneliness. Then comes a bridge showdown. Connor secretly goes to fight Quince himself to protect Duncan, but Quince cheats, stabbing Connor before Duncan arrives. That moment is important because Highlander repeatedly shows that honor means almost nothing to the evil Immortals. Rules exist, but morality doesn't. Duncan finally kills Quince in front of Richie, triggering the first quickening sequence of the series. With lightning, explosions, power surges, reality itself has been distorted. And then suddenly, Duncan is thrown straight back into the game he's been trying to avoid, whether or not he likes it. What makes Duncan compelling is that he isn't chasing power. Most fantasy heroes want something, mostly power. Duncan mostly wants peace, but the world refuses to let him have it. That tension drives almost every major storyline in the series. But now, Connor and Duncan are fascinating opposites. Connor becomes emotionally distant over centuries, while Duncan still tries emotionally to connect with people and have relationships. And this actually makes Duncan more vulnerable, but it also makes him more compassionate. Richie functions as an audience surrogate. He is thrown into a hidden world of Immortals, rules, swords, duels, and ancient conflicts. His reactions mirror what we as the viewers are feeling. There's shock, there's horror, there's curiosity, and eventually, fascination. There are some hidden details that most viewers missed in The Gathering. For example, the pilot was almost a TV movie. The episode was originally conceived as a made-for-TV Highlander film, but evolved into a series plot. Richie's future was teased immediately. Connor's line about Richie needing watching is widely believed to foreshadow Richie's deeper importance later in the series. The show was a contradiction to the actual movie. The original movie implied that Connor won the final gathering, but this episode introduces multiple surviving mortals, effectively creating an alternative continuity. Fans debate about this for years. Connor was only meant to launch Duncan. Narratively, Connor's role was genius. He appeared just long enough to pass the torch on to Duncan MacLeod before the series fully became Duncan's story. The Gathering succeeds because it does more than introduce a fantasy world. It introduces philosophy. A story about immortality, loneliness, love, violence, and what it truly means to survive through centuries while everyone around you fades away. And honestly, I think it was one of the best starts that I've rewatched and has held up remarkably well to today's world. Because there can only be one.